I went to the Sundance Film Festival. Actually, that's a lie. I sat at home and watched season 2 of Arcane. But then, when the films became available digitally, I paid $800 to have unlimited access to all of the films. No, that's a lie too. No. Also, I woke up early to buy the individual tickets, but I didn't wake up early enough, and most of the movies I wanted to see were already sold out. But I did have friends who were way more on top of things, and I was able to watch some Sundance films with them. Specifically, I saw 4. Atropia, Omaha, By Design, which has the best letterbox premise I've ever seen, and Plainclothes. I'm planning on at least reviewing Atropia and Omaha since these seem like the most popular of the 4, and a lack of footage makes these reviews very hard to edit. But if you are interested in hearing thoughts on the others, let me know. We can make something work out, capiche? Anyways, Atropia. This movie won the US Grand Jury Prize at Sundance. Not all of these recipients have really stuck around nowadays, sure, but recent winners have consisted of Whiplash, Minari, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and Oscar's Best Picture winner, Coda, so this is still a pretty big award. And I have to admit, I was a little surprised Atropia got it. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, it just seems very unlike those other films. While those feel like polished and prestige dramas, Atropia feels like a kind of rough and homespun comedy. Atropia is a war satire film directed and written by Haley Gates in her feature film directorial debut. It depicts a fake country called Atropia in the outskirts of California, which is based off of one of many fake countries built in the height of the Bush era in order to provide US soldiers with on-the-ground, immersive military training. One of the many performers in Atropia is a woman named Fayrouz, who is attempting to use her role in Atropia as a vehicle into Hollywood. Then, she sparks a steamy romance with an ex-soldier who was brought on to play the role of an insurgent. There is a lot to that premise, we will be talking about that. Atropia has a very interesting premise, which is based off of a very interesting and often overlooked facet of recent US history. I learned something new here, for sure. I wouldn't have ever thought to link the entertainment industry with the American military-industrial complex, but it is a clever and compelling connection. Through the city of Atropia, there is some very interesting commentary, not only about how soldiers are trained, but about how the government depicts foreigners in hostile territories. Everything feels comically artificial and weightless in Atropia. Death isn't real, the villains are telegraphed and obvious, and none of the soldiers are actually taking this seriously. Meanwhile, the war is very real. Unfortunately, Atropia as a movie lost me 30 minutes in, when the romance plot, which would eventually become the main plot, was very abruptly introduced. Our main character, played very well by Alia Shawkat, is clearly defined. At first, Shawkat excels at portraying this wannabe big-time actress, and a lot of the comedy comes either from her melodramatic performances during wartime, or from her opportunism, using a military training ground of all places as her means of making it big. As the movie went on, however, I struggled to connect the aspiring actress side of the character with the lusty sex maniac side, and I then struggled to take the relationship seriously when there felt like such little ground to build this film off of in the first place. The main dynamic between the two leads kinda reminded me of Ron and Tammy too from Parks and Rec, but the crucial difference was that we weren't meant to actually ship them, you know? And I struggled to connect all of that with the pregnancy plotline. Apparently the pregnancy was not originally planned, as the actress actually got pregnant before filming and they just went with it. Fair enough, you gotta do what you gotta do, but it did feel like a sorta last minute inclusion if I'm being honest. As for Abu Dice, his motivations were overall clearer. He wants to use his role in Atropia to get admitted back into Iraq since he finds his current life with his wife and kids to be boring and difficult to adjust to. But these motivations are hardly challenged, and I almost wish the film was able to do more with his character. Atropia worked best for me when it leaned into the comedy of this government-sanctioned, tax-funded theme park. Again, it is a unique concept. In the Q&A, Gates pointed out that there were a lot of different movies depicting and criticizing the Vietnam War, but there weren't a lot about Iraq. It is rather interesting since both wars are considered questionable on the American side nowadays, but one has received a lot more limelight even in their own times than the other. So Helen Gates sought to address that missing gap in our popular culture, and I think the effort is admirable. The filmmaking felt a bit rusty and amateurish. I certainly wouldn't call Atropia a looker, but it did fit the artificiality of its setting, as well as the VHS vibe of the Bush era.
Now watch this drive. All right.
However, Atropia did not work for me during the quiet moments, when jokes weren't being told and the characters got serious. That means I didn't identify with the characters as much as I would have liked. That means there wasn't as much to think about in the quiet moments as the movie may have thought there was. Atropia wanted there to be substance, it clearly has a lot to say, but I think Atropia could have benefited from a bit more focus and a clearer thesis, especially involving our two leads and their dynamic with each other. I would recommend Atropia for people really interested in the Bush era of US history. I'll be honest, I can't think of anyone to whom this applies, but hey, people like that gotta eat too, and they have been starving. One cannot survive off of Green Day alone. But if Green Day's American Idiot, the Osama Bin Laden episode of South Park, and a funny Madonna rap is enough war and terror content for you, then you could probably pass. If you like this video, please give it a little like and a comment and a ring-ding-bing of the little bell icon down at the bottom, please. Thank you very much.